What is good, my people? We are live back on the forecast. I know it's been a little minute. I had to take care of some family issues, but everything should be resolved now. So, you should be getting the videos and everything like regular and the lives like regular. So, I just wanted to come back and talk to the people. I tried to keep in contact, during that time, but you know, stuff happens in life, but we can't stop. We already see what's going on. So, I just wanted to let the people know. And the next video should be up in the next day or two. What's going on, Marcus? So make sure y'all subscribe to the backup channel, the Forecast Radio 24 is in the description. But yeah, I should be back good from now on. I should have had everything taken care of and everything should be good. So, I wanted to come on and let y'all know that, the forecast is about to be back with regular shows, regular videos like you used to. And, anybody could call in and talk about whatever you got to talk about. I'm not going to be on here too long tonight. The number is 804-601-4015. And y'all can talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. And I know I've seen a lot of stuff been going on, but I haven't been able to really keep up with it or talk about it or like that, like I wanted to. But I'm sure everybody saw what happened, in the Breonna Taylor case, and of course nobody should be surprised about that. And honestly, that's just the way this country is, and it'll stay that way as long as we stay in the submissive position that we are in, where we ask somebody else for justice. Not only ask somebody else, but ask somebody who has historically denied us justice based on the fact that we're not even human, right? Not just right and wrong. We're not even human to deserve justice, but we're still surprised when we see that we don't get it. And, everybody got their reactions about what happened to Breonna Taylor. Right. Yeah, definitely. White supremacy is definitely a system that has to be destroyed. And that's the whole purpose. Because everything that's going on, it has to do with white supremacy in our lives. It controls every single thing. And while we should be mad about what was going on with Breonna Taylor, it's the fact that they control every single aspect of our lives. That's what we should really be mad about. To be able to take dominion over our own lives. Because right now we're subject to another person, rules, laws, and punishments. And they can go by and do whatever they feel like. Right? The cop, got in more trouble for the shots that he missed Breonna Taylor with than actually shooting and killing this woman. And we still out here talking about justice, right? And even with the NBA, you notice that when somebody got killed or whatever, the players they didn't play or whatever, but a day or two later they came right back to the gym. They came right back to get their paychecks. Right back with those same approved messages on the back of their jerseys, right? And none of us find it a little odd that just a few years ago when Colin Kaepernick made this whole thing go right, everybody was against him. And I'm not even comparing Colin Kaepernick to somebody like Muhammad Ali. Right, I can't put him on that level, but we can see the hypocrisy. But we can also see the game plan that the system uses against us if we pay attention. Right? Why all of a sudden do all of these people agree with Colin Kaepernick? They're apologizing to Colin Kaepernick when just a few years ago they made their choice. But now they can flip flop on either side of history. But see, what we don't realize is That is nothing but a strategy to keep us limited, to keep us in our spot, so that when Breonna Taylor's murderers are set free, as many people who murder us are, whether they're cops or not, they have protests not planned, not sponsored, not organized by us, but by them. And even if they burn stuff down, set stuff on fire, right? They can control what is burned down. They can control what is set on fire. They can control how far the movement goes. Because I'm not stopping at defunding the police. I'm not stopping until the whole system is destroyed. What's going on, Melanin always? And yeah, y'all can call in too, by the way. I'm just wanted to come on here and holler at y'all. Everything should be cleared up. So I should be back on a regular basis. You know what I'm saying? Y'all should be getting videos, even though, YouTube has taken down like my last two videos I tried to put up. So, I have been trying to make videos and YouTube removes them. And we got to find a way to do that. But the point is, if your enemy is always in control of how we respond, they're in control of how we fight back, then they can control how much damage they take. Right? They can lead us in any direction that they want to lead us in. But, all of this stuff with Breonna Taylor, and, is really pointless to keep talking about it unless, we going to do what we have to do. Now, we can say, oh, yeah, when is this going to stop? But deep down, we all know when this is going to stop. We all know what it's going to take to make it stop. Now, the problem is a lot of us don't have enough courage to do what it takes. We'll find any excuse in the world. Now, me, I'm more afraid not to do something because guess what? They're going to shed our blood any goddamn way. It doesn't matter. So if you're going to, fight for freedom and fight for something that was built off of your blood and was never meant for you and never could be meant for you, because if you take the root out of something, right? If you take the root from the tree, then how is the tree going to live? And if you take the root out of this country, which is white supremacy, how is it going to live? You can't take the root from something and it still live. Right, exactly. And not only are they in control of the finish line, they're in control of the starting points, they're in control of the obstacles and who has to go through what obstacles, right? They can put the chains on your leg, the ankle weights on your legs and arms. This is what we have to understand. We're just thinking, okay, yeah, they have a 400-year head start in a race. No, they have us still in chains, making us the track. We're not in the race. We are the track that they're running on. And that's the thing that we have to understand. But we could never have the protection that we need until we build community. Now, I know today a lot of people will say, well, we aren't, on the same page. We can't get on the same page. But what we have to understand is we have been way more unified than we like to believe, than I know our enemy likes to believe, because they want us to believe that we aren't unified. And that's why they go out of the way to keep us, you know, to keep us arguing with other, groups of black people around the world. But the truth is, we are way more unified than they like to believe, than we even believe. Now, we're not at critical mass yet. And that's the point of them taking over these movements because, especially with YouTube and Facebook and just with the internet, and they've always televised our murders, right? Since the beginning of television, right? Some of their first theater was, blackface, depicting us as savage monsters, right? So this isn't new, but with so many people being able to connect, because the internet really changed the game, and with so many people being able to connect, and with all of this violence in our face, then it was inevitable for another, you know, what happened in the 60s, when they said, we're tired of getting beat up. We're tired of not fighting back. If they kill us, we're gonna kill one of them. It wasn't exactly the civil rights movement that got those laws passed. It was the Black Power movement that said, okay, we're not gonna get punched no more. We're gonna start hitting back. It was them. And that's why it's important for them to control our movements. But until we have a sense of community, because a cop can get on the radio and call 10 other cops to show up with guns to make sure 100 other people in the neighborhood don't interfere as they violate somebody's rights. But we don't have that kind of power because we don't have community. But that's the number one, well, one of the top rules in war that keeps them in power: divide and conquer. If they can keep us fighting each other for pieces of paper with the faces of people who would have lynched all of us, instead of coming together to deal with the person who, quote unquote, makes this, what we call money, what we use as money. And really, it's only because we agree. And they know the moment we stop agreeing, they have a damn issue. And it's important. And it's important for us not to have a sense of community, because when we did, guess what? We had Black Wall Streets everywhere. And it wasn't just Oklahoma, because Jim Crow was all over. Segregation was all over. They hated us so much, they didn't even want to take our money. And honestly, I would like to know if somebody hates me that much they didn't want to take my money, so I don't give it to them. But see, when that backfired on them, and when Black people had to form their own communities to survive, they start thriving because they understand this. From day one, they understood that. They would have built this country without bringing us if they could, but they just did not have the physical capability, because we are not them. But it's a little bit different when you kidnapping somebody who knows what freedom is, right? He's not just gonna sit there while you come in the cabin and rape his wife or rape his daughter. How can we stay on code no matter what without an economic base? Well, you have to get on code to develop an economic base. Well, first of all, you have to understand exactly what a code is, right? Like in all of those videos that was popping up with all of those white women, right? No matter what they did, they could have been caught stealing, if somebody was, especially a black man or something, if they was holding that white woman, guess what the white people around them would do? They would go up and comfort that white woman. That don't have nothing to do with economics. That's them staying on code, right? They know how to have each other's back. Now, if we can't have each other's back because they're harming our children, just shooting us down in the middle of the street, then there's a problem. I don't know what it's going to take for us to learn how to stay on code. But all of that comes with instilling that mindset into our children. And that's where the integration generation hurt us a little bit, because they were going to black schools. Now you got to understand, the schools were terrible, right? They had no plumbing, they had no heat, they had nothing. They were just in shacks, crammed in. And the Thurgood Marshall, right? Because they had actually won the case to get equal funding. But Thurgood Marshall said, well, the only way it could be equal was to go to the white schools. However, if they would have fought for the funding the way they fought for integration, it wouldn't have hurt the black teachers, right? Because we think about what happened to our kids, us, going to school to learn that Christopher Columbus discovered America. But it also hurt the black teachers, because now, even till today, majority teachers are white women. And even still today, we give white women a pass when they benefit, if not the most, from this system, because they benefit on both sides. White women are the majority, are the largest voting bloc, but they call themselves a minority. They talk against affirmative action and benefit from it the most. Yet we send our children to their schools to learn from them. And what do you think our kids are going to learn? And we don't do enough, or not enough of us do enough study and take enough time to put the right information in our kids' mind when they come home with the wrong information. Right? Our kids should be challenging these teachers' white supremacy points instead of learning them. But we got to understand, they use integration as a weapon against us. That was their way to retaliate and stop the Black Power movement, and created a bigger division than ever before. And within a few years, you had stuff like the Moynihan Report talking about Black single mothers. Even though just a few years before, Black families, Black people were the most married, right? They had the most two-parent households. But within a few years, they had this racist Moynihan Report. Yeah, we definitely need an economic base. But see, us not knowing our history, we don't understand how many times in this country that we literally built an economic base. The only problem was protecting that economic base that we built. Because once we build it, right, you have, I mean, all the way up to the American government bombing the cities. You have all of these white immigrants and all of these, because I know a lot of white people. Well, my parents didn't own slaves. My ancestors never owned slaves. Well, most of those people were the ones committing the violence against Black people because they resented them, because they were taking the jobs. But we don't know enough of our history because it's designed to be that way. I mean, we live in a country where it has been illegal for us to read and write longer than it has for us to go to public schools. So if we ever did realize that we are the only group in the history of America that has picked ourselves up by our bootstraps, and not only just one time. right? The Jewish got reparations, Asians got reparations. Well, we know everything that white people got was reparations. They all get benefits coming into this country. And even the benefits that are supposed to be for us go to these other groups. And they say for quote unquote minorities. But that's why if we did ever under, that's why we did understand that, and we start taking control of that and learning from history. And when we build, because we can easily rebuild an economic base, it doesn't take much. And no, in America, we don't have as much wealth as white people or any other group. But when you start circling those dollars, it starts growing. We have enough to build what we need to build. Now, the problem is we don't have a military and we don't have a community because we allowed our communities to be destroyed. And, that's why it's important for us to start at the basics, right? We have to, first of all, get over a quote unquote gender war that we allow ourselves to get sucked into. We can't afford to have a gender war. Now, don't get me wrong. We have issues and differences. Everybody does. We're not the only group, even though people like to say, well, black people are the only people who argue about this or say this. We are not. Believe me. We are just the only group that can't afford to argue about that. Because the only way that you're going to be able to change it, right, exactly. The only way you're going to be able to change it is to start informing yourself. Because really, the hope they need to keep us ignorant because all they're really redoing, they're not really creative. White supremacy is not really creative. They just repackage the same thing over and over and over. And it's like every 100 to 150 years, it takes a different shape or form, right? From slavery to Jim Crow to, after Jim Crow to what's about to happen next. Now we can look at this as an opportunity for us to build what we need to build because, like I said, at any time, right, we can create whatever we want to create. We can call ourselves whatever we want to call ourselves, make whatever laws we want to make. It's just we have to have faith in each other. We don't have enough faith in each other. Right. Slaveholders definitely got reparations in the North and the South. Right? And that's another thing in history. They teach you, well, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, but you can't name one slave that Abraham Lincoln ever freed. But it's just the fact that not knowing history, we keep repeating it. But when we start telling our kids, and that's another point of the internet changing the game, and they have to have rules and stipulations on the internet, especially on channels or sites like YouTube, and they black channels like these and other, people who talk about black information. But you gotta expect that. That's why I'm not really mad at YouTube. It's frustrating, but I really look at it as an honor because they can't allow us to talk about this. Because if we knew the power that we actually did have and that we have displayed, because we think we haven't displayed it, because we only look at recent history, we can't really see beyond the crack epidemic without looking at the crack epidemic as another strategy that our enemy has used against us. Right? They sold drugs into our community and made enough money to fund a small war, and then made money on the back end by locking us up for having these things. and it was meant to destroy the family. That's why you got to look at every single stage. It's always been to destroy the family, right? The first thing they did before America was America was do their best to devalue the black woman, right? In the early 1600s, right? White women could come over here, and if you married them, right, pretty much everybody who came here, black, white, whatever, had to pay a tax except for women. But black women had to pay the tax as well. So if you married a black woman, you would have to pay taxes for yourself and taxes for your wife. But if you married a white woman, you will only have to pay taxes for yourself. And then they passed a law that said any child born to a black woman would be enslaved for life. I mean, who would want their child to be a slave for life? And of course, black people were not allowed to marry. What's going on, Daryl? But all of that was for a reason. And as soon as they were able to, black people realized they had no other choice but to build community. Now, what they did not realize is their communities would be attacked. Now, I don't know why they didn't realize that. Just like we need to realize that. But it's no different from us being surprised about Breonna Taylor's murderers not being charged. We shouldn't be surprised about that either. But their goal has always been about reproduction. Globally, they have always been the minority. That's why they need divide and conquer tactics. That's why they need to break us into ethnicities and nationalities. Right? They learn how to stay on code under they learn how to stay on code under the guise of whiteness. Right? We need our own Berlin conference right now. But instead, right, we got to realize the effects of what has happened in America has on us. And, just speaking as a black man from a black man perspective, because I can only speak for my side, right? We gotta understand that for another person to come into your home, right, while you're already a slave, so your cabin, that you're staying on his property, and for him to walk in and be able to rape your wife, your mother, your daughter, right in front of you, or take her in for his company that just happened to come that night, and all you can do is sit there and wait for her to come back. Over generations, yeah, respect will be lost. Something will be lost. Now, see, we only hear about the sad stories, but we don't hear about the stories about how all of these men fought back, murdered all of these people, didn't let that happen, because that, believe me, that happened just as much. That's why I always tell the story about Madison Washington, who escaped slavery, went back in to get his wife, and when he got caught, he he killed every slaver on board, and freed everybody, including his wife. And there's plenty of stories like that, but we don't know our history. And that's why it's important for us to be in a position where, as adults, men and women have to be on the same page. We have to have two-parent households again because we can't afford it. We are in a war, right? the only way you can afford to get away with that is if you have a community raising people. But even then, we see the dynamic is very important. And now, since really the 60s, they switched what they were doing, and they kind of start not empowering black women, but giving her just enough power to keep separation from black men. And I'm not saying, black women have any kind of power in America. We see that with Breonna Taylor. But they also give black women more chance to get scholarships, to get into colleges, to get corporate jobs. And of course, again, we have economic problems in our community. And of course, we can go back to the 60s when uh, they had the welfare thing. They went in, first of all, in the 50s. This is what we have to understand. They destroyed our communities because we still had successful communities. I live in Richmond, Virginia. Maggie Walker built a lot over here, right? Her businesses were here. And they destroyed her businesses. They built highways right through Jackson Ward, which was the economic district. And they built the projects. And once they took the money out of the community, they took the jobs out of the community. They took everything we had. And then they said, well, black women will give you a place to stay. We'll give you food. We'll even give you medical help. But you have to be separated from your husband. Now, white women, especially like white farmer women and all of that, they got the same thing, but they didn't have to separate from their family. Right. And then after that, of course, you had the feminists come along and say, I don't need a man, even though they were marrying their own. But after centuries of dysfunction on both sides, that's just written into our DNA. Of course, we had issues. But even still, seeing children being murdered on TV should be enough for us to put aside whatever issues that we had. Now, definitely, once we get in our own position, we build our own, we got issues that we're going to have to work out. But we're going to have to get on code and do what we have to do and protect each other. Because, they're counting on us having the oppression Olympics amongst ourselves. When really it's meant to keep us equally in the position that we're in. And we have to just stay focused on ourselves, and it doesn't matter what kind of movements they build. We have to build our own movements, and all of that starts with in the home. Once as black men, we're accountable. As black women, they're accountable. We have our children, we teach them, we teach ourselves. You grow a community. Right? And we have to stop looking at each other, shunning each other. Right? A lot of us have this mentality of the white man's ice is colder. Well, yeah, they have more economic resources. They have more connections to people in positions with money. But we are in a war. Of course it's going to be like that. We just don't understand that we are in a war. And anybody can call in. The number is right there. Is 804-601-4015. And it's not only that, right? We already know about how they fear their numbers dwindling and our numbers aren't. And it's not only set up to keep us from reproducing, society is set up to keep a lot of people from reproducing, right? And a lot of us wonder, how it's so hard out here on both sides as far as dating. But that's because we live in a white supremacy society. The society must be destroyed. It's meant for it to be difficult. All of these things aren't an accident. And especially for so many people to have the same issues. Right. We competing with each other instead of with them. But it's not just them making us do that. We're doing that out of fear. And we got to realize where that fear comes from. Because when you see the biggest, or if you see anybody get tortured, right? And we all know about buck breaking, where a slave owner would strip a slave down and tie him down, often a rebellious slave, in front of everybody, and stake him to the ground, and then whip him, then have another slave whip him to psychologically put that in our minds. And then the slave owner, because a lot of them were gay, and they like to put the gay movement with our movement, but a lot of these slave owners were gay, and they would rape the black man in front of everybody. And sometimes we even force another slave to rape them in front of everybody. To keep us mentally down and afraid. To not be able to look at them in their eye. But guess what? Millions of us fought back. And, all of the people that gave their lives for us to be in this position, right? They are the ones that give me the energy, that give me the strength. Right? Hopefully their words are coming through me and teaching us what we need to know. But we gotta realize, until we have a community, until you have a military, a nation, or something to back up what you say, then every nation will see you the same. And really, they have a fear of us. They have a fear of being genetically annihilated. That's why they can kick off, like, I think it was Stephon Marbury, the Asians kicked him out, and he complimented Asian women. And they said, we will not tolerate it. But they feel like they can disrespect us anytime, any place, because they know it don't come with any consequences. And that's why we got to let go and start to heal ourselves individually first. Because if I, as a black man, had a problem with a black woman, it doesn't matter. I still, in a system of white supremacy, to stay on code, I still would have to have her back. And she would have to have mine, even though she may have a problem with me. We got to start healing ourselves mentally, individually. because it's going to be hard to stay on code if you're looking at the only person in the world who may have your back as your enemy. But that's because we're looking at the world, especially in America, through Americanized eyes. But the one part of American that we should be taking that we don't is the right to defend ourselves. America spends more money on self-defense than other countries combined. Yet when we say don't kill us, if you try to kill us, we're gonna shoot back. That's a form of terrorism to white supremacy. That's because those who in power make the rules. If they come in and slaughter millions of people, take the land, enslave the people, they call that a victory. If 3 or 4 of them get killed and they get pushed back, they call that a massacre. Because your enemy understands propaganda, how it's used, and how propaganda can affect who you want to have a family with, no less. And all of this trauma make us want to have lighter skin, because in the system of white supremacy, the lighter skin you have, the more benefits you have, and it causes self-doubt. And now you look at each other like the enemy looks at you, because when you say the same lie over and over and over, not only do they start to believe it, we start to believe it. And now a black man walking down the street and just a white tee, and God forbid if he have dreads, not only will they start crossing the street and clutching their purse, now we start to do the same thing. When really we should be clutching our purse if 2 white boys is walking down the street towards us. Because history has shown so many black people have died in the most violent way because they crossed paths with a white boy at nighttime and they was by themselves. But we have that self deprivation after hundreds of years, but we have to understand that and we have to expel that from our system, because deep down we all suffer from some form of Stockholm syndrome, some worse than others. Some of us have severe Stockholm syndrome, right? I mean, I guess a lot of you call them coons, but to some degree, we all have Stockholm syndrome. That's what war does to you. That's what these environments do to you. Do you know what the problem with the hood is? It's not the people, it's the poverty mindset. And it's not poverty by accident. And it's not because it's something wrong with the people. And they can talk about statistics all day, but they will be crushed with statistics, and it's not up to us to prove anything because they know better than we do. They created the system. It's up to us to learn the system so we can destroy it, and not just destroy their talking points, but destroy the system, because we'll never be safe anywhere in the world. They like to tell us go back to Africa, but guess what? If we did, within 10 years or so, they would be right back over there trying to kidnap us when they realize that most of the culture is gone, most of the inventions were gone, right? And they think just because, we got technology now, but they thought they could do it without kidnapping us in the first time. But, right, they don't have that melanin that protects them. Yeah, you need a place to go. And I'll tell you this, right? I was watching this documentary on Rosewood, and one of the last survivors, she was interviewed, and they asked her, what do you think? Black people should get their own land or go their own place? And she said, well, I'll tell you what, if black people do get their own land, make sure they're not surrounded by white people, because all they're gonna do is come in and burn it down just like they did my city. So even if that's the case, you have to be prepared and you have to know what you're doing. You have to be organized. And it starts with little things and it grows from there. Like with these protests, and instead of Black Lives Matter, with our own organizations, we'll go to these stores, right? And instead of standing out there saying no justice, no peace, we'll go inside the store and say you got 24 hours, 48 hours, a week to shut down and get out of here. And if you don't, then we're gonna make sure nobody shops in the store again, and you're gonna go out of business anyway. Or handle it by another means. What's going on, Antonio? But that's when we start getting organized and start having faith in each other. But you can tell the level of faith that we have. And honestly, you can't blame them but so much, even though, like what happened to Nick Cannon, right? Now, of course he should not apologize. And that I can't say it hurts the rest of us because we're still gonna speak our mind. But he was forced to apologize because he believes he will lose the standard of comfort that he has because black people will not support him. And historically, black people haven't done that, which is something that we need to start learning how to do. But all of that comes, and the easiest way to do it is to start instilling that into our children, the next generation. Instill it into ourselves first and foremost, so that we can instill it into our children. Because that's the only thing that's going to help it. That's the only thing that's going to solve it. That's the only thing that's going to change anything. The enemy understood it is easier to enslave a child than it is an adult that knew freedom before. That's why they ended the slave trade, not for no justified moral reason, because they saw what was going on in Haiti, and not just Haiti, everywhere, including in America. And they said we need to stop bringing in slaves and start creating them from scratch. And they forced black women to have like 20 children or something like that. Right? They would promise them freedom if they had a certain number of kids by a certain age. And even though they still wouldn't get it, right? They would force, black men to go around impregnating or getting so many black women pregnant, right? They were forced to have at least 12 kids a year. And all of that stuff does stick to your DNA. It sticks to who you are. All of that trauma is passed down to us. And we do have some of those issues. But we gotta realize how much power that we have. We aren't that brainwashed. We aren't that defeated. Because as soon as slavery was over, we had the most two-parent households for a reason. And you know, I always say the Black Messiah is Black unity. And you know, the America's job is to stop the rise of the Black Messiah. Well, the Black Messiah is Black unity, but that starts with the Black family. That starts with which leads to community, which leads to a nation. And when you build a nation, then you start having a say. But each one of us individually have to do the work that we have to do on ourselves to heal the trauma that we have in ourselves, whether that be in dating. You know, you don't want to date each other because, like it or not, we are in war. We have an obligation. If you want to interracial date, then you have to destroy the system of white supremacy. At the end of the day, we can have this conversation over and over. But at the end of the day, as long as the system of white supremacy exists, then interracial dating is used as a tool. But if you don't like the way you look, you don't like looking at yourself in the mirror, you have some resentment about your mom or your dad, and you feel like, oh, I'm never dating this person again or another Black person, then, you know, half of the battle is won already because that's the point. We really got to let go of all the trauma that we have so that we can be there for each other. And, you know, when we are together, we could be the best partners that we could be. And, you know, I always think about Medgar Evers and his wife and how they trained their kids to be ready for anything. Because back then, you know, they were throwing pipe bombs and all of that stuff into their homes. And they trained their kids because they realized, you know, what they had to do, and danger could come to them at any point. But the fact that not only Medgar Evers, but his wife and how she held it down. Now, of course, you know, a tragedy, that brother should not have ever been murdered. And that's the point. We got to stop taking casualties no matter who they are, whether they be a leader or whether it be George Floyd or Breonna Taylor. We got to stop taking casualties. But, you know, we won't be able to do that until we have, you know, the family structure. But, you know, if anybody don't got anything to say, anybody could call in. I'm not gonna be on here too much longer if y'all don't have anything to say. 804-601-4015. Yeah, but yeah, family is important. Family is the key, is the structure. It's what is the base for all of it. And that's why America's number one goal has been to destroy the Black family. And by now we have so much trauma that we take our frustration and we direct our anger at each other. And really, it is a fear thing along with it. But we've also been brainwashed. And when that image is put in your head over and over and over, you believe it. I mean, it's no wonder, even though a lot of us hide it, so many people in our community do have low self-esteem because when all you see is images of us being shot down or us being criminals, thugs, pimps, prostitutes, whores, we think that's all we do. There's a reason why, you know, a movie like Black Panther was celebrated the way it was. let's see, a Black Nation. Hello, hello. But yeah, y'all don't have anything else to say. I'm gonna wrap it up. Make sure y'all subscribe to the Forecast Radio 24, the backup channel. Um, I appreciate y'all. I should be back, man. I should have taken care of all of these issues, and I should be straight. So, man, I want to appreciate y'all, man. Much love, and as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're gonna keep falling for anything.